Okay. And so I brought both of these gentlemen on the podcast, one from the standard side and the consumer consumption side, and one from the business side in terms of advertising, to talk about the state of podcasting in 2020. As many of you know, I started this podcast under a different name, Calicanis Cast, 12 years ago, I think, and 11 years ago for this one. We've done over 1,000 episodes, but I think it's a good time to pause because there's been a lot of activity. I want to start with the big seismic event, which, Marco, you alluded to, which was, hey, this was built on open standards by a friend of ours, Dave Weiner, who led RSS, really simple syndication, is that right? And then he added an attachment, the ability in your RSS feed to add an attachment. That was the key moment that enabled podcasting. Correct, Marco?
Yep.
And ever since then, it's grown and nobody has been able to strangle it or control it. So just like the web, just like blogs, which actually blogs has been kind of deprecated, we'll get into that. But the web and email and, of course, podcasting have exploded all on this open standard. Marco, when you saw the announcement that Joe Rogan had his show, I believe, licensed, not bought, for what looks like $50, $100 million for some number of years, I don't think all the details are out, you were like, F this, I think, on Twitter was your quote. Explain why that is so problematic to you and to the industry.
The main thing is that podcasting has gotten to where it is and is as great and awesome as it is for all the reasons anybody who's ever heard of RSS should already be familiar with. You know, it's this wonderful open ecosystem with a wide variety of producers and consuming apps and this great ecosystem that isn't controlled by a single entity for the most part. You know, Apple's kind of an asterisk in certain ways, but for the most part, it's not really controlled by an individual entity. And you can compare it to something like YouTube, where if you want to make video that matters at all today, it has to be on YouTube, basically. And so that you have this one company, this one platform controlling by far, like the majority of this really important medium. And you look at doing stuff on the web. And if you do stuff on the web, you are really beholden to Facebook for traffic, and you're really beholden to Google for inbound search. And so you have these couple of massive companies that control a massive part of your business. And like in the case of YouTube, it's even worse than the web because you have to do all of your business on their platform as well. And podcasting doesn't have that right now. And it never has. Apple has been the directory of choice, and Apple still has the largest app to consume podcasts, but they have really been fairly benevolent in their ruling of podcasts. They've really taken a very light hand to it and have really embraced and empowered the open ecosystem as much as they really could. So this one company having this massive share hasn't really been a problem for us. And then everybody who's not Apple is all kind of, working in the same ecosystem for the most part. And then the difference is that Spotify did what a few other companies have tried to do before and have met with mixed success, which is to kind of create a walled garden of podcasts that tries to become the default way people listen to podcasts. And that normally wouldn't go very far, but the difference here is that with a combination of Spotify's immense existing market share of people listening to music using their apps, and also an immense amount of money they've put into it, Spotify has been able to not only acquire a pretty big chunk of market share pretty quickly, but although it's not as big as most people think it is, but it is still a substantial market share. But also they've been able to now really put a pretty big push of buying exclusive content for Spotify.
Right.
And this is where it becomes tricky, because if you're just trying to get listeners, then everyone's still playing on basically the same footing. Everyone's still, there have been a couple of premium services before that had exclusive content, but they weren't very big. They didn't go very far. So for the most part, an app like Overcast, like my app, it can compete pretty easily, as well as any other app that's like Overcast. I mean, there's hundreds of podcast apps out there. And we could all basically play the same catalog of content. And so it's this wonderful ecosystem of all this creativity and all these wonderful tools and different apps for different preferences. It's, with a few exceptions, very privacy respective, very creator friendly. It puts a lot of control in the creator's hands.
Yes, the creator gets to decide, hey, I have this RSS feed. You can use it under these rules. And if you break those rules, I can restrict your access to it